Something that has become very popular on the left nowadays is identity politics. It is when you group people together based on some common characteristics they have and focus excessively on that, for instance by bringing up someone's race or sex all the time, even in situations where it is irrelevant. And some people are arguing for gender quotas and racial quotas in workplaces, for instance. So, for example, they may have a policy that says that 40% of workers here have to be women. In that case, they would be giving someone a job based on their sex and not their competence, which is really what matters in my opinion. And if you're a woman who is more qualified than a man, why wouldn't they want to hire you? It would be more beneficial for them. So if you're hiring a woman just because she's a woman, when there's a more qualified man who could get the job, you're discriminating against the man. And it would be much more beneficial for you to hire people based on competence if you want the job to be done well, rather than hire a woman or a black person just to be able to say, look at how diverse we are, that obviously makes us better than everybody else. If you want to fight against discrimination, don't discriminate yourself. The problem I have with identity politics is that it reduces people to some arbitrary characteristics that they have, instead of viewing people as individuals, which is what we all are. If you're against racism, sexism, that's exactly the kind of mentality you should be fighting against. If you're going to have gender quotas in workplaces, that is based on the idea that it is better when it's more equal, that it has to be equal. And I don't see why it has to be equal. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be equal opportunity. I think there should be equal opportunity, but not equality of outcome. So it's basically based on the idea that different jobs have to have both men and women in them. For some reason, equality is always best, even if maybe that's not what women and men want. There are some biological differences between men and women which make them choose different jobs. And I'm not saying that it's, only biology that determines which job you end up choosing. But it definitely plays a part. There are some studies that suggest that baby girls and baby boys tend to, look at different things a longer time. For instance, baby girls looking at faces a longer times than boys do. So there is evidence for biological differences between the brains, and I will make a video about it in the future. But considering that there are biological differences between men and women, it's not strange that men and women will choose different jobs, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be 100% equal. And I don't think men and women will ever be 100% equal, and that's okay. But they should have the equal opportunity, I think. And that goes for men as well, Men should have the same opportunity as women. And if you're going to basically discriminate against men, then they don't get the same opportunity. Then you don't believe in equal opportunity. And it gives the right-wingers an argument for white men being oppressed and marginalized when you discriminate against them in the workplace. And I mean, they would be right to say that they're discriminated against. I don't think they're oppressed or so, but they would be right to say that they're discriminating against them. And I think that would push, just like the whole cultural appropriation thing, that would push people away from the left. I mean, if you're a white man and people say that you deserve to be discriminated against because of that, it's not hard to see why that would push you away from that ideology. And it's not exactly a compliment to women to basically say that your competence is not good enough, so you have to get this job, you have to get special help to get this job just because you're a woman. That's kind of an insult towards women. Also, when people talk about black identity and, this is what black identity is and so on, how is that doing a favor to those black people who don't identify with that? I mean, there are black people who are not like your view of what black identity is. So how is that doing them a favor to say that this is what black identity is? Isn't it better to just acknowledge that there is no such thing as black identity? It's just black people are individuals and they have their own identities. They can have identities that are much more similar to, say, the stereotypical white person. and a white person can have an identity that is much more similar to a stereotypical black person. So there's no such thing as white identity or black identity. And I think that, this is just white identitarians and black identitarians are basically two sides of the same coin. They both reject individualism and viewing people as, who they truly are rather than just viewing them as a skin color. So there's probably more to be said about this, but I think I made my main points clear in this video, and maybe I will talk more about it in the future. I'm planning on talking a bit about feminism, and I will mention some of the same things, I think, in that video or in those videos that I will be making. So if you don't want to miss them, you can subscribe.